In the 80s, Sega was competing with the popular Nintendo Entertainment System, which by 1987 controlled 65% of the video game hardware market. The NES had a huge library of diverse games created by numerous developers and publishers, where Sega relied much more on itself to produce games. One of the genres that was just dawning on North American shores was the Japanese role-playing game. Nintendo, by 1987, already had numerous JRPGs on the console in the Japanese market, including Halide, Megami Tensei, Ultima 3, Final Fantasy, and Dragon Quest, which would later be titled Dragon Warrior in North America. Sega needed to compete in this growing interest of role-playing games, and so employees at Sega's Research and Development Department were asked for ideas. Chieko Aoki, a rising star at Sega, pitched the idea for an RPG outline that would become Phantasy Star. The development team would be an all-star cast that included Takako Kawaguchi and Miki Morimoto, as the famous trio would be dubbed as the Three Sega Girls for their contributions to the company during the 80s. Also working on the game was another talented woman named Riko Kodama, who served as the main artist for the game, as well as Yuji Naka, who would later create the Sonic the Hedgehog series. According to Morimoto, the name of Phantasy Star was chosen by Naka, who had an affinity for idol singer Noripi, who had just released a song titled Nagasa no Fantasy, which translates to beachside fantasy. With the sci-fi setting, Naka changed the spelling of fantasy to start with a PH and added the word star to reinforce the space epic. With this team, Sega would go on to produce one of the best JRPGs of a generation and create Phantasy Star, a game that would become a system seller for the Master System. For gamers who had the Sega Master System who wanted to experience a JRPG, there was one clear choice above the rest. In 1987, Phantasy Star was developed and published by Sega. Gamers were blown away by its innovative 3D dungeon crawling and an immersive setting that combined fantasy with space. Phantasy Star is one of the best JRPGs ever created. Welcome to my Phantasy Star review. I'm Tiger Chainsaw, and Phantasy Star is very special because it showcases the best that the Sega Master System had to offer in terms of gameplay, graphics, and an incredible soundtrack. Phantasy Star is one of the crown jewels for the system, and I'm excited to review it today. Now, if you are a first-time viewer, or if you just haven't yet, make sure you hit that sub button because I have plenty of Master System content and I have plenty of game reviews on my channel, so you won't want to miss any of that. Let's figure out what King Lassic is up to and what is making him evil in this Phantasy Star review. We are about to prepare for takeoff of this Phantasy Star review, an incredible journey filled with first-person perspectives, a cast of party members who each have personalities and specific weapons, and all of this will be led by one of the first female protagonists. Let's discuss the plot of Phantasy Star, but be warned, spoilers are ahead. The time, Space Century 342. The location, deep within the Andromeda Galaxy lies the Algol solar system. Under the democratic rule of King Lassic, life was good, as he provided everything his people could want. Space travel had been discovered 200 years before, and deep space shuttles had allowed colonization of Motivia and Dezoris, the other worlds of the Algol star system. But slowly, over time, things began to change. It started with a new religion which was rumored to have come from another galaxy. The dark priests of this religion, never seen by any mortal, promised immortality to all who joined. You would live forever. King Lassic was getting old. The idea of living forever appealed to him, so he became the first to join. Then he changed. It started with a threatening suit of armor that the priests made for him. The armor looked evil and corrupt, and that's how Lassic began to rule his people. Outrageous taxes became a burden on everyone. Business on all 3 planets shut down, and an entire town fell into decay. There was no way for people to make any money. As time passed and the people suffered, horrible creatures and monsters began to stalk all 3 worlds. When the dead came back to life, the people feared the worst and guessed the truth. Through black magic, Lassic had become an evil tyrant. But where there is evil, there is also always good. Brave individuals began to rally in secret against Lassic, but his robot cops were ruthless in hunting out these defenders of the people. One was Nero, a spaceport worker in Caminite, the central town on the planet of Palma. Long ago, his father had disappeared trying to learn of Lassic's evil secrets. Now, the robot cops had crushed Nero as well. Before he died, he passed on his short sword and his quest to his sister, Alice. He also told her to find a brave fighter named Odin. Alice raised the sword to the sky and vowed that Nero's death would not go unavenged. First, I want to comment on how incredibly in-depth the plot of Phantasy Star is. It includes taxes, it includes people that are not even in the game with backstories, and it includes a motive for why the king turned evil. The plot for Phantasy Star is incredible in detail. RPGs are known for their well thought out stories, but it's incredible to see this detail in the early era of home console video games. There's already lore presented to the gamer before they even turn on the console. Alice has an incredible journey in front of her, and she's only 15, but she starts to gather her faithful companions. After finding a rare item, Alice trades it to a merchant who gives her a feline companion named Mayu. Together, they find the warrior Odin, who had been turned into stone by the monster Medusa. They revive him with a magical remedy and set off together. The last piece of the puzzle is Noah, a powerful mage who refuses to help until Alice provides proof that the governor of Motivia requests him. The 4 of them train together, completing quests that include rebuilding a space shuttle and finding a robot captain to pilot it. The 4 warriors confront Lassic and kill him, but it's determined that his body was under control by a dark force that was summoned by black magic. This force is known as Dark Falls, and it escapes back to Motivia and tries to invade the governor's body. Alice, Mayu, Odin, and Noah arrive just in time to defeat Dark Falls and rescue the galaxy from the corrupt nature of this force. During my Phantasy Star playthrough, I was constantly wowed by this game that was created in 1987. I was blown away by all the aspects that it had put together to create this incredible adventure. What stands out immediately is the 3D first-person dungeon crawling. Almost half of the game is spent in dungeons finding required items, people, or level grinding. These dungeons are presented in a 3D nature not seen in video games at the time. But the best part is not only does Phantasy Star pull it off, it does so flawlessly. Walking along the corridors is a smooth motion that immerses you into the environment and truly makes you believe that you're exploring a dungeon or a maze. Phantasy Star has similar elements to combat as other JRPGs of the time, like magic and attack power. You can customize your armor and weapons by grinding for money and buying new wares at shops located in towns. You'll also be able to learn new spells from leveling up. You'll be able to check your experience points by visiting churches and towns to see how much more you need in order to grow another level. Like most JRPGs of this time, things aren't always clear on your next move. You'll get obtuse hints from NPCs, but it's important to explore every corner of the overworld map and the towns that you visit to gain valuable insight. For me, it was much easier with a walkthrough, which is what I use to get through the game, with simple hints and directions on where to head next. I needed those hints because the galaxy of Phantasy Star is divided into 3 worlds that you can travel between with the space shuttle. It was a treat to watch your ship blast off into space as you head toward your next destination. Each world is themed differently for terrain and has a few towns in it with dungeons, and the world maps are impressive in size. As you travel these lands, powerful wild creatures roam around waiting to encounter you in random battles. It's best to explore fully prepared to battle whenever you venture outside of a town. The deeper you explore, the more powerful your enemies will become. If you are not properly leveled up, your party can go down in just a few turns if you're facing a dominant foe. If one of your party members dies during a battle, they actually die and will need to be resurrected via a church. The difficulty in Phantasy Star was a fine line. On one hand, you can save the game whenever you wish, which is terrific. On the other, without a guide or a dungeon map, you could get lost for hours or not know where you should travel next. I didn't encounter any battles that were really challenging, but I also level grinded a ton in preparation. Battles are presented in the first-person view and all attacks have animations. If you compare it to other games at the time, like Dragon Quest, that also had first-person perspectives, it becomes even more impressive because each backdrop is themed to match the environment, whereas Dragon Quest's enemies were static. In Phantasy Star, enemies will move or shake depending on how they attack. It's a great touch to add to the battles, and it makes them more entertaining. From the weakest enemies to the most powerful, they were all detailed beautifully and kept the sense that I was in a world full of danger and adventure. For my party members, Alice was my main point of attack. She was the strong one with physical attacks. Odin was versatile, but I mainly used him with ranged attacks with various guns. Maya was weak at first, but after finding the best equipment for the little creature, he leveled up nicely and became very strong with his claw attacks. Noah comes as close to a healer as there is in the game. He had weak physical attacks, but his magic was overpowering and disposed of many enemies. Now, like most other RPGs, the difficulty depends on how well you've leveled up your team. There were a few boss fights, but I didn't struggle with them due to me leveling up excessively. As a bit of advice, once you do reach the final boss, make sure you come prepared both in terms of equipment and a level base. There were enough boss encounters throughout the game to keep the game interesting and to keep your team on their toes as they explore the land. While you explore, you'll be treated to a wonderful soundtrack that echoes the senses with adventure and curiosity. As a staple of JRPGs, the music is some of the best on the Master System. Finally, the end credits were simply awesome. It was the final touch to Phantasy Star that puts it above any other JRPGs of its time. The credits are scribbled onto dungeon walls as the camera pans around exploring. It was a neat trick, and one that gave gamers one last treat before turning the game off. Phantasy Star introduced 3D dungeon crawling to the RPG genre while giving the Sega Master System a must-own game that Nintendo didn't have. The exploration is challenging, and you'll sink your teeth into this space fantasy for quite some time, but it's all worth it as the gameplay and characters come together in an immersive experience. Phantasy Star ignited a great series that has seen many releases since. This is a true masterpiece that every JRPG lover or Master System owner should play. Phantasy Star scores a 9.5 out of 10. So that was my review of Phantasy Star that was released on the Sega Master System in 1987. Have you played Phantasy Star? If so, I want to hear your memories. Drop me a comment below and let me know all of the great things that you love about Phantasy Star. Or if you haven't played it, do you want to play it now? While you're typing away your comments, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to watch plenty of Master System content and other game reviews. In fact, I just released a review of Zillion that I think many of you will like, so tune into that next. Now, for all of you Phantasy Star lovers out there, I would love it if this video reached more Phantasy Star fans, so if you know any, make sure you share this video with them. Happy gaming, thanks for watching, and make sure you play a video game today.